Yep, thank you, Keith, and ditto to what Keith said. Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining another iteration of RPI's annual winter webinar series. A really interesting topic that Lauren and I have for you today, covering tips and tricks for giving an effective speech, something that we believe is relevant no matter what your job title says or what industry you work in.
It's gonna go. Give us just a second, guys. Sorry about that. Bear with us for just a second. I do apologize. So let's go in and hop into a little bit about us while we do that.
Sure. So starting with myself, my name is Daniel Jenab. I am a change manager here at RPI Consultants. I am a ProSci certified change practitioner. I received my Master of Arts in Communications Management from George Washington University. And I started RPI in 2018 doing project management work. And a little fun facts about myself, I am an avid reader and a member of 2 book clubs. And remember, folks, a personal health check is just as important as a technical health check.
Absolutely. My name is Lauren Beeker. I am a supply chain consultant, working primarily with Cloud Suite implementations at this time. I started RPI in 2019 as a business analyst. Little personal fact, I absolutely love cats and dogs. I'm allergic to both. And I've also been to Disney World over 40 times.
So, Lauren, I've always wanted to ask you, 40 times for Disney World.
Yeah.
What's the draw for that much?
As a very pale person, it has shade and it's not the beach. So there's also some fun activities, but that's always been the way it goes.
Makes sense.
Perfect. Okay, so let's get into a little bit about our agenda today. The first one is, why is public speaking important? Habits of successful speakers. We both have a different story time and some final takeaway and final thoughts. So number 1, why is public speaking important? Breaking news, public speaking is extremely uncomfortable. It never stops being uncomfortable, you just get better at it. The more you practice, the more you do it.
And we have some statistics to give context for that. So if you're worried about public speaking, you are not alone. Glossophobia is actually the name of the fear of public speaking. Symptoms of glossophobia include sweating, increased heart rate, brain freezes, and difficulty breathing. Public speaking is actually one of America's biggest phobias. Nearly a quarter of the country say that they fear speaking in front of a crowd. And looking at the graph on the right, public speaking is ranked as higher on the fear scale than stuff like snakes and spiders and clowns, which it's wild, and that really shows just how much people are concerned about getting up and doing this. And there are 4 contributing factors why we are afraid of speaking publicly. And the first is our physiology. So getting up here, talking in front of a crowd, talking in front of people, it stimulates your nervous system, and it puts your body into a fear-based fight or flight state. And research does suggest that if you are generally prone to higher anxiety, you will be more prone to feeling anxious about public speaking. Next is our thoughts. So what we think to ourselves when we're getting ready for public speaking or when we're actually standing up here and delivering a speech. And this is really what happens when people overestimate the stakes of communicating their ideas in front of others, where they view the event as a potential threat to their credibility, their image, or their chance to reach an audience. Next would be situations, and this is the context of the speech. And certain situations heighten your emotional or physiological response, such as a lack of experience, evaluation potential, or status difference, such as a change in management consultant joining a client steering committee call. And finally,
I was going to say, or an example, when the clicker doesn't work
or
at the very beginning.
Or
Perfect
when the clicker
situation.
doesn't work.
Yeah.
but we work through that.
Yes.
And then finally on here would be skills. And this is pretty self-explanatory. Public speaking is a skill, just like dribbling a soccer ball or shooting penalty shots or saving penalty shots. The more you practice, the better you become. So you might be asking yourself, why are we talking about this? Right? The point of the presentation is how to give more effective speeches, not just the fear of public speaking. Well, it does matter. You can't give a presentation without speaking publicly. And as consultants, our communication is our #1 asset. Ultimately, consulting is a fancy term for saying customer service. And I could speak from personal experience. When I'm contacting customer service, when I have an issue, I want them to be cool, calm, professional, and clearly communicate to me the resolution for my problem. And being able to do that with different size groups of people is a skill.
Absolutely. And do you prefer speaking in front of a large group or a small group?
Small group, for sure.
As I would much rather do a large group because I know more people, the less people total will notice if I make a mistake.
And for me, it feels like the fewer people there are, maybe the fewer people that are there to judge me.
That's true as well.
So really, how we communicate and how we present ourselves and our company is crucial to gaining and maintaining the trust of our clients. And something really important here is that knowledge is only half the battle. So clients come to us because we're experts at what we do. But consulting isn't only what you know, it's a sum of your knowledge and your ability to effectively communicate that knowledge.
Absolutely. Just because you're a great soccer player in the World Cup doesn't mean you're the best coach at the World Cup.
Or the best penalty taker.
That's true too.
And ultimately, our responsibility as consultants is to always strive to improve ourselves, to increase our ability to deliver excellent service to our clients, and that comes along with improving our communication skills.
So let's go over some habits of successful speakers. So the first one is controlled cadence, making sure that you're not talking too fast, talking too slow, speeding up when you're nervous, slowing down. Also keeping a regulated tone of voice, so not getting that high-pitched voice when you're scared or trying to talk too deep, just maintaining, confident, normal speech. Also keeping minimal filler words. The one that I always do is It has been a very hard, long process to get rid of in my vocabulary, especially during those brain freezes that you have with the fear. Also, audience awareness. Why are you there? Who is the audience? Are they there to just get some helpful tips, or are they there to learn something in order to pass a test or something to complete their job? Also, a structured approach. Having an idea of where you're starting, what you're doing, knowing what happens after point A to point B. And able to handle difficult questions. So when you get a question that you don't know the answer to, do you freeze, or are you able to work around it and continue your presentation?
Absolutely. And just as a reminder to the audience, these are general guidelines, not hard and fast rules. But in order to break the rules, you must first know them. So moving on here, we do have material knowledge or confidence. And in my mind, having confidence breeds confidence, particularly as a consultant. So clients are coming to us for advice. We want to be able to deliver that advice confidently, like we know what we're talking about. Next is word selection. So it's using the right words for the right audience. And it's easy for us to forget. And Lauren, you might be able to speak to this as well with so many screens in Infor, that we are the experts in our topics. We are surrounded with technical terminology and industry jargon every single day. And sometimes we need to break out what we're saying into common English for our clients to understand.
Absolutely. For example, CPA at RPI means something completely different than an accountant. So.
Content and process automation.
Yes, exactly.
Next is appropriate energy, and this is really just matching the energy of the situation. A kickoff should be more open, engaging, positive, whereas a call about a particular issue, probably not going to be the same energy as a kickoff call. Next is tailoring your speech to your audience. And as consultants, taking the kickoff call again for an example, when we go into those calls, it's usually after an extensive contracting process and pre-planning engagements. So we know what's wrong with our client's system today, and we tailor our default project kickoffs to show our clients that it's a partnership, they're heard, and they're getting a real custom experience. And finally, not just in speeches, but in my opinion, in life as well, I think it's important to be vulnerable and be open to feedback and assistance from others. And for this, I think it's really important to seek out mentors, trusted coworkers, friends, colleagues, family. Run through your speech with them and hear their honest thoughts. Rome was not built in a day. A house starts with one building block.
Absolutely. And again, you're not going to improve if no one ever gives you feedback on what can you improve on.
Exactly. And on that line of thought, we did want to include a sampling of some of history's most famous speeches. And this presentation will be up on YouTube after we're done, just in case anyone watching wants to go back and take a look at this slide and look at some of these speeches for themselves. But just looking at this, obviously the speakers here are outstanding. And they are all at significant events, or in Charlie Chaplin's case, the climax of the movie. So previously we learned tailor to your audience, right? It would be strange, to say the least, to approach a managed service weekly status call with the same intensity that Winston Churchill used in We Shall Never Surrender, or Sojourner Truth used in Ain't I a Woman. But looking at examples of people succeeding in the highest pressure situations gives us tools in our tool belt for our daily lives.
Absolutely. So, story time. A tale of two presentations.
And this is slightly Charles Dickens themed.
Yes. Okay, Great Expectations, the inventory super user training of 2019. So when I started one of my first projects, it started with a super user training. And I, throughout college, was always told, stick to your 30, 20, 10 rule of PowerPoints and slide decks. Keep it simple, keep it brief. However, for this week-long super user training, we were going to provide over 100 pages per slide deck. So, however, that was exactly what was needed for this training. It was exactly what the client needed. The slide deck was used for 5 days of training, and it was also able to be used as a job aid and reference long after the project closed. And this was about a 2-year project. So throughout it, it was always there. Anyone could look it up, kept it brief, had pictures. It was perfect.
So, in other words, you knew the rule of the 30-20-10, but
broke it.
in order to tailor it to your audience and deliver them the customer service that they needed, you purposely broke it.
Absolutely, because why would I break it down into 10 different slide decks for 5 days if it could all be in one?
Exactly.
And they all relate.
And they're using it years later.
Exactly.
And mine is hard times, a day to remember, a kickoff to forget. And this was in October 2018, just a couple weeks after I started at RPI. It was for the kickoff call for a document management software version upgrade. And to prepare for this kickoff, what I did was I typed out pretty much the entire statement of work onto my OneNote. And we got on the call with the client, my technical consultant's on, client leadership's on. We sit down, and I just walk through every single word in that OneNote. It took way longer than it should. And what I was doing was I tried to make up for nervousness with sheer volume, which just about never works. And worse than that, I closely resembled everybody's worst college professor. My tone, my speaking rate, my cadence, they were all off, not right for that kickoff call. And I didn't do a good enough job tailoring my speech to my audience. And I still think back on that to this day. Now, I will say, just to close the loop, kickoff notwithstanding, we did finish the project on time, on budget, and on scope. I will say, something that really stuck with me during this is a coworker walking past my desk and seeing all of my notes asked, "What do you do if they ask something not in the script?" And I didn't have the answer for her. Admittedly, I still script out about half of the stuff that I do, but this was a growth opportunity, and ever since that pivotal moment in my career, it has been nowhere near as bad or as drawn out as that particular kickoff.
Good to know. You gotta make mistakes sometimes, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
You can't grow without making mistakes. And so now we get into our takeaways and final thoughts section. And so what we wanted to do here was to leave you, the audience, with some actionable strategies of speaking habit improvement. And first, and arguably most shocking, we think that you should record yourself and listen to the audio. A lot of people don't like what they sound like in a recording. I know that I don't.
I absolutely hate it. I will try to avoid it at all costs, but that doesn't help me improve.
It's strange, it's uncanny valley almost, but it does help. Because it provides you, and this is where our software consultant background comes in, right? It provides you a tangible data point from which to work from. This helps control your cadence, maintain a regulated tone of voice, and minimize filler words. Oftentimes, and Lauren, you might be able to attest to this, we don't even recognize how many filler words we use until we go back and hear ourselves talk.
Absolutely. I just did it. Is my filler word, and I have spent 4 years trying to get rid of it. I've only counted about 4 so far today, so we're getting there.
Progress.
Yeah, exactly.
Next is to feel comfortable with an intentional paused silence to help gather your thoughts. And in my mind, silence doesn't need to be awkward. Personally, I'm in favor of starting a movement to normalize the taking of a couple of extra seconds to help you gather your thoughts, deliver a better and more thoughtful answer. Taking a couple extra seconds helps you minimize filler words, helps to improve your word selection, and buys you a little extra time to think about how to handle difficult questions. And finally, my big push, one I think on all the time, is outline your general ideas, but don't memorize the script. And outlining your ideas helps improve the structure and flow of your speech. It allows you better word selection. Keeps it tailored to the audience and sound like you know what you're talking about with material knowledge.
Which is something I am working on, and I've been using from Daniel to maybe have more of a script, not necessarily every word, but I am a person where as long as I've got 3 bullet points on a Post-it note, I think I can make it work. However, I have learned using Daniel's method, it does get easier when you have a better outline.
You like talking to big groups, I like talking to small
Yeah.
groups. I structure mine, you don't structure yours.
Yeah, it'll work out.
We're gonna meet right in the middle here.
Yeah. So the next one would be buddy up and do a dry run. So audience awareness, working with someone to practice and let them give your feedback, especially someone who doesn't necessarily know the topic that you're speaking of. It helps them if there is a newcomer in that area. So not using acronyms that most people may not know.
And there are a lot of acronyms
Yes.
in Cloud Suite.
Absolutely. And some of them are the same depending on which module you're using. Feedback on the appropriate energy. If I'm giving a super user training, should I really be doing Martin Luther King excitement on this, or do I need to tone it down a little? Or do I sound like a professor who's just waiting to retire? Asking for help, difficult questions. Have people come up with some questions to help you be able to think on the fly. Again, practice, practice, practice. word selection, material knowledge, timer for cadence, and structure. Get out a stopwatch and make sure that your time fits in with the allotted time that you will be presenting. And also model yourself after someone. Asking for help, using that meet in the middle type of situation where you don't have to be exactly like that person, but take a little piece and say, this was good, let me try and work it to my advantage.
Exactly. What we are is just an accumulation of experiences, right? And if we can borrow experiences from somebody else, learn from their mistakes, and that helps us avoid our own.
So, final thoughts. You are not alone. As we saw from the graphic earlier today, or in the slide deck, you saw that a quarter of the US, their biggest fear is public speaking. So, although it is a biggest fear, presenting and speaking effectively are arguably one of the most challenging aspects of being a consultant and many other professions. Majority of professions, at some point, you are going to have to talk to someone else, even if it's one person. That's still public speaking.
Doctors, nurses, with your bedside manners.
Exactly, especially when families are involved.
Accounts payable analysts calling approvers to get invoices approved. Supply chain resources calling vendors.
Absolutely.
It's all about how you communicate.
Absolutely. So speaking is a skill, and just like with any other skill, your speaking ability can be developed and refined, but also not using it will not, you can go backwards. It's not always just like riding a bike. It's something you need to keep up with in life.
Exactly. And with the strategies and skills that we shared with you today, we certainly hope that they can play a small part in help refining that skill for you. And we do have two very cool upcoming events we'd like to share with you. So the first is our Cloud Suite Bootcamp that we're hosting in RPI's sunny Tampa office toward the end of January, where you'll learn directly from our technical implementation consultants about the ins and outs of Cloud Suite. And we have some really cool topics such as security role management, overall system architecture, IDM output, and something that's been really hot recently is burst reporting. So if you're on Cloud Suite and want to learn more, if you're on Infor V10 or another ERP and are thinking about moving over to Cloud Suite, or if you're just passively interested and want to spend a few days in January in Florida geeking out over some technical topics with our consultants, this event is right for you. And to learn more, visit rpic.com/Cloud Suite Bootcamp.
Okay. And our next one is our Infor HCM Road Mapping Festival. So this will be occurring February 28th through March 2nd here in Baltimore, Maryland. There will be VIP road mapping sessions, hands-on training, featured speakers, breakout sessions, access to some Cloud Suite HCM sandboxes, nightly activities, and many more. For information, please visit rpic.com/HCM Festival.